So what Sam Altman here is saying is, I, as Sam Altman, want to push OpenAI as fast as possible because I think we need artificial intelligence to be in the hands of the right people. And he is obviously thinking of himself as the right person, he and his company. To be fair, everybody building these models will probably think that of themselves. And this is why it's quite dangerous to have mega corporations building these models. Good morning, my name is Kyle. I'm here once again to give you the daily AI news and updates, trying to help you keep up to date with what on earth is going on in the world of AI, because frankly, it is a fire hose of information. So this is a morning live show that I do Monday to Friday. I have a live audience. I have people coming in on TikTok right now. I can see you. Hello, good morning, everybody. And drop in your questions and I'll be able to answer them in between giving my thoughts about the daily news and what's going on in the world of artificial intelligence. And again, all of this is going to be available on YouTube. Once it's being completed, it will get edited, it will get summarized, be clipped into various shorter videos, time-coded and added onto YouTube. If you're looking for particular topics, that's going to be the best place to find that information. And there is a free daily newsletter that goes along with that, with all the videos, to again allow you to find exactly what you need to be looking for. But I'm very happy to have you guys on the live as well, because you can ask questions and that helps me answer and add more, I guess, interactivity to the show as well. So good morning, everybody who's joined me live. I see quite a few of you. That's exciting. Awesome. So the first news item of the day, not really a news item, just a curious. So Sam Altman reveals his fears for humanity. Great. About this weird emergent thing that AI keeps evolving. And the quote is, "No one knows what happens next." So Sam Altman is the CEO and one of the co-founders of OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT. So arguably they are the ones who kicked this whole new era of artificial intelligence off. So we've had artificial intelligence, or the concept of AI, basically since the beginning of computers, even before, arguably, as a philosophical and mental concept. But we've had AI for ages, and we've had it in various different forms. Now, people argue about what AI is, and people talk about strong and weak AI and true AI, and then there's ASI, AGI, and artificial narrow intelligence, ANI, etc. These are all just definitions. We've had a form of artificial intelligence, well, at least since the 1950s. But things like when you book a flight ticket on Kayak or Skyscanner, which we've been doing for decades now, that use machine learning in the background. And machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence. What we have now is something newer. We have something called generative artificial intelligence, and a subset of that is large language models like ChatGPT. Now, large language models are not the only form of generative AI. There's also diffusion models for creating images, for example. But the one that's really taken hold of the public imagination, has become very useful on a day-to-day basis, are the large language models. So if you think of, we have AI as a field, it's an academic field at the top. Within that, we have things like machine learning, and within that, we have generative AI and large language models. And then within that, ChatGPT. So when people say, oh, there's no such thing as AI, what they mean is we haven't reached artificial general intelligence yet. So they're using a different definition of what AI is. I don't personally agree with that, as you can probably tell by the tone of my voice. But people are going to continue to do this in order to knock down how far we've come, especially in the last couple of years. Anyone who doesn't like ChatGPT will generally attack it by saying, hey, it's not real, true AI. Fine. Whatever. That's a definition that you have. The main thing is people are using it every day and finding it useful. So it's unhelpful. Rant over. Let's look at what Sam Altman has been saying. So Sam Altman, again, the head of OpenAI, relatively controversial head of OpenAI. He was deposed very briefly, and then he came back and got rid of his deposers. So he was on a podcast episode. Theo Von's podcast is one of those long, kind of Joe Rogan-esque podcasts where they just talk for a very long time, which is good because it means people's guard gets let down. So someone like Sam Altman is a CEO. Generally, his guard is up and he's very careful with his words. But when you talk for hours, you can generally get to the truth. So they talk for Oh, an hour and a half. That's relatively small for Theo Von. So Theo asked, do you think there should be some kind of slowing things down? There's one of the reasons I get scared sometimes to use certain AI stuff because I don't know how much personal information I want to put in because I don't know who's going to have it. A fair question. And then Altman said, it's a race. So it's not just a race for commercial dominance, but one to guide the values of artificial intelligence moving forward. And he said that if OpenAI, creator of ChatGPT, does not move quickly, then somebody else will. And the fate of AI could slip out of the hands of those most mindful about its social consequences. This is very interesting, especially considering Trump's plan, which came out yesterday. Trump announced a big AI plan. And one of the main tenets and pillars within this AI plan is saying, we do not want an ideologically led artificial intelligence. We want an uncensored, unfiltered AI. So when someone like Trump says something like that, he basically means we want a more right-wing one, because most artificial intelligences right now are left-leaning, which is not that surprising because they are all created, sorry, the Western ones are all created in San Francisco, where the social values tend to be a lot more left-leaning than a lot of places on Earth. And because we use reinforcement learning, human reinforcement in the creation of our AI models, and we also pre-filter the information that we put into those AI models, there is going to be a guiding hand. So the question is, whose guiding hand do we want? The idea that Trump is trying to say that we should have no guiding hand, it should be fully neutral, is impossible because of the way we build these models. That is a pipe dream that does not exist. There's always going to be a choice about what information we put in, what information we exclude, and then how we shape that information and present it to the end user. The question is, whose hand should that be? Right now, it's mainly white men, so that's an issue. And then it's mainly liberal and left leaning, which may or may not be an issue depending on your personal political leanings. For me personally, I'm okay with that. For someone like Trump, he is not. So this is why we have with Grok from XAI, Elon Musk's AI model, one of the big things that they push is that we're a neutral, we're an unaligned artificial intelligence that, is not sycophantically socialist or communist. This is a big thing that they go for. We see the results of that, though, when Grok calls itself Mecha Hitler, when it starts spouting anti-Semitic and racist hatred. And also, it is a bit easier to jailbreak and get information out of it, like how to make ricin and pipe bombs. When we have a fully unaligned model, one that we haven't given our values and our structures to, then they're more likely to give up dangerous information. They're more likely to spew hatred because, again, they are trained on the internet and there's a lot of harmful stuff out there, unfortunately. So what Sam Altman here is saying is, I, as Sam Altman, want to push OpenAI as fast as possible because I think we need artificial intelligence to be in the hands of the right people. And he is obviously thinking of himself as the right person, he and his company. To be fair, everybody building these models will probably think that of themselves. And this is why it's quite dangerous to have mega corporations building these models. Unfortunately, from a practical point of view, they are the only ones who can, because you need such a lot of money to buy the graphical processing units and to run the GPU plants to train frontier leading edge models. You need so much money. We're talking in the billions, moving into the trillions in the next couple of years, that it is only open for gigantic corporations. So we're in a weird place now where one of these corporations is going to lead the charge right now. It's OpenAI. There's also Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, and XAI are in the race as well. Which is the least bad? I think that is our main question right now. So Sam Altman also talked about, where is it? That's interesting. I can't actually find the quotes about Emergent. Okay, I'm not actually finding the quotes about Emergent, so that's very bad journalism, Fortune. So I'll have to go and look at the whole transcript. But anyway, I think that is interesting enough that Sam Altman is putting himself at the center of human history and saying, I am a champion here and I need to make sure I guide us into this next phase safely. Depending on what you think of him as an individual, as a human being, maybe he's the right person. Maybe he's a better person than Elon Musk. But the fact that it relies on one individual is scary for humanity. And I think that is fair. I thought that was an interesting piece. Go and listen to the full podcast. It's Theo Von's podcast and Sam Altman is on it. It's an hour and a half long. Henry on LinkedIn is saying, great to see you this morning. Hello, Henry. Good to see you too. Just scrolling through the questions. Give me 1 second. There's a lot for you this morning. Back in Shape says, are the new ChatGPT agents any good? Not had a chance to play with them yet. I just got them yesterday, so I've started to play around with them. So far, good. Yes, they work. The problem is I've been using Manus quite extensively for the last 2 months. And so for me, having used Manus for all this time, it means that the new ChatGPT agent, the operator and the agent system are less impressive because it's about the same as Manus. That said, because it's built into ChatGPT, it's a lot more accessible. This means more people are going to be able to use these systems. Manus, when they first released it, it was invite only. And then once it moved out of that phase, was basically you had to pay. I managed to invite lots of people to it. So I have loads of free credits. So I still haven't paid because I've invited maybe 50 people to it and you get invitation credit. So I've done fine on it. So I use Manus for that reason. Don't tell them that. But ChatGPT's agent is similar. So for those of you who aren't aware of this, ChatGPT has it's got an operator mode and an agent mode. They're fairly similar. Basically, what happens is you can set up a task and ChatGPT will go off and do that for you in the background. So it will go and do the work for you. So let's say I wanted to put together a news summary for today. I haven't done this yet, but this will be one of the main uses I'll use it for. I will go ahead and give it a task, which it can run potentially every single day for me, where it's going to go off and look at the news and then compile that all into a report, and then potentially based on that report, make a script and then cut that script into multiple segments and turn those scripts into short form video scripts. It can do all of these tasks one by one. If previously I tried to give all of this to a single ChatGPT prompt, which I could have done, the results wouldn't have been very good because it would be trying to do too much at the same time. An agent is much better able to break up a complicated task, into multiple smaller segments in order to get larger pieces of work done. So it's very exciting. And the fact that you can have an agent that goes off and does that work autonomously of you, this is the kind of leverage that we've been talking about with artificial intelligence, because it's all well and good using AI, but if you have to keep going and back to ChatGPT and typing in information, that doesn't allow you to move that much faster than you would if you're just doing the work manually. With an agent, you can have it go off and do the work while you do something else entirely. And if you get to a more advanced level, you can have multiple agents. So this is what happens in coding. Sometimes you might have 4 or 5 agents all doing small parts of the task, all putting together the code for you, and then you commit to everything once it's ready. So this is more of what we've been promised with AI. We are moving towards that now. And the fact that it's been put directly into ChatGPT, for those of you who haven't seen it, it is one of the tools. So at the bottom, you are going to click on tools, and then they have something called agent mode. So from there, you are able to trigger an agent and send it off to do tasks for you. It's just got to the UK as of yesterday. It's a staggered rollout, and I don't know if it's in the EU yet. The EU tends to get things last. It tends to be America, the rest of the world, United Kingdom, and then the European Union, step by step, mainly because of regulation. So back in shape, I haven't used enough to fully know, but from basic testing, because I've used Manus already, it didn't blow my socks off, but I'm spoiled by Manus. So I think for a lot of people, this is going to be extremely exciting, and I highly recommend going and playing around with it. Scrolling through some things. There's lots of people waving, which is lovely. Hello. Hi, everybody. Jack, maybe it's gone to his head. So talking about Sam Altman, I think, yeah, so we just had the news story about Sam Altman and seeing himself as almost as a shepherd, bringing us into this new age of humanity. I think you cannot become the CEO of a company like this unless you have an ego the size of a planet. It takes a certain kind of mind. We've seen it again and again with people like Steve Jobs. Like, he was a genius, but he was a egomaniacal maniac in a certain ways. These are not people who are adjusted or well balanced, because you cannot be to act and to work at this kind of level and to lead this kind of company Anyone at that kind of CEO level of a multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar company is wired a little bit differently. And if it requires him to see himself as the shepherd taking us into the next epoch of our humanity, that's fine. Whatever gets him out of bed in the morning. All I hope is that for the rest of us, the people who are using these tools, is that the personalities have some checks on them, whether it's from the people in their company, which in OpenAI is unlikely because there was a purge. So as I mentioned before, he was basically kicked out. They got rid of Sam Altman and he came back, I think 2 weeks later. He was brought back. And then over the next few months, the people who were responsible for having him removed, they all retired or went on to other projects. So they were being purged out of the system. So he's relatively unchecked now. And then shortly after, we saw like the dissolution of the various different safety boards within OpenAI as well. So it was all a bit sketchy. I'm sure when we look back at the history now, I'd be like, ooh, that could have been the beginning of something very problematic. We haven't seen anything massively terrifying, although it depends on your perspective. But I think out of all the people running these companies, he's probably in a better position to shepherd us than Elon Musk. Remember that they are still technically a non-profit as well. There were moves to move it out of non-profit's not the right term. They are capped profit. It's a very strange situation that they have right now, but he's still making money. He can still make an awful lot of money. It's just they cannot make as much money as they were hoping to make. And Elon Musk, hilariously, has been one of those people who has pushed back on this to stop OpenAI from becoming a fully for-profit company. So they are capped, I forget the name of it, capped profit enterprise or something. There's some complicated creation, but Sam Altman is still doing extremely well in terms of cash as well. The next one up was going to be, this is something that we've talked about a few times on the lives, especially because we have website owners, we have people who run their own online businesses who are on these lives. There's a new, I won't say era, that's a bit fancy, a new trend happening where we've got something called the zero-click internet. There is less and less of a need to click through to a website to find the information that we are searching for. So as I've talked about before, this is an existential threat to YouTube. It's not YouTube, but to Google. Google also own YouTube, so it's also a problem for YouTube. It's a problem for Google because if people don't go to Google to find information anymore, then 80% of Google's revenue is at risk. However, Google are also perpetuating this by allowing AI overviews at the top of their Google chats. So whenever you go onto a Google search, you can now get an AI overview, which generally gives you the information that you're looking for without you having to click through to the website, hence zero click. So zero click internet means the people who have built these websites over the last few years or whatever it is, are no longer generating advertising revenue. They are no longer bringing people back to their pages and making sales. They are no longer being able to funnel people into a larger ecosystem, which is a huge problem if you run an online business and you have relied on SEO, search engine optimization, for the last decades. That is ending because people are now using ChatGPT and other AI in order to get their information. And this is only just going to speed up. So we've got a few studies. There is, oh gosh, terrible website. There's one from the Pew Research Center, which says that there is a drop of, here we go, just looking for it, struggling to find it. See, this is probably indicative. If you were looking for a certain piece of information, an AI overview is generally a better way to get it, not going to the website and having to search through it. So if I wanted a answer to this question, I'd be able to get it from AI in half a second. Whereas now I need to go through all of this data and find it myself. Basically, AI allows us to be a lot lazier. And people will always want to be lazy. So if you run a business, appealing to laziness is going to be a good way to make money. So 6 in 10 respondents conducted at least one Google search in March 2025 that produced AI-generated summary, blah, blah, blah. I can't even find it. I'm going back to this. So this is again. Study claimed sites previously ranked first can lose 80% or 79% of traffic if results appear below Google overview. So if you are below an AI overview, then you are 80% less likely to get that click, which, as you can imagine, demolishes businesses. Anyone that relied on being first on Google is now in a huge amount of trouble. And so what you just saw, me struggling to find the information on the page, is indicative. So every time I do these summaries every single morning, I'm having to go to web pages. I'm having to go to news pages. And one, sometimes the information is hard to find that I'm looking for. Two, they're generally filled with adverts or just crap all over the screen. Three, sometimes they're paywalled and I cannot get access to the information. There are so many barriers that are making it harder and less attractive to get information by using search. Search has been the paradigm that we've used to access information on the internet for the last 20 years or so. So we assume that is the only way to access information. But doing it via generative AI is actually faster. We can get more sources. Yes, there are going to be issues of hallucination, but those are decreasing when we use things like deep research models or something like Perplexity and their new browser, Comet. The sources will be provided. So it will allow us to go back to the original website or the original source and show us exactly where the information needs to be. It is fundamentally a better way of accessing information than using search, because search is gameable. So the whole thing about search engine optimization, which has been in industry for the last 20 years, is how to get to the top of Google. Not should you be at the top of Google, not is that the best thing to be at the top of Google, but how, as a business or as a news agency, do I game the system? How do I game the Google algorithm to move my information to the top of Google? That's been an industry. That is not in the benefit of the end user, the person who wants to find a recipe for lasagna, the person who wants to find out easily information about how many people are clicking on websites, for example. Instead, what happens is search engine optimization specialists can help game that system and get you to the top. That doesn't work anymore. Instead, the generative AIs are trained on all the information and they will synthesize that information to give us what we need based on our questions. So we are going around Google. Funnily enough, it is Google who are helping us to do this with the AI overviews. This was a question on the live yesterday. As I said, AI overviews and AI search and AI generation of information is an existential threat to Google. Google will probably not be around in 10 years from now, which I know is hard to believe. But the reason for this is search makes up 80% of Google's revenue, and it's at a 75% profit margin. This is their cash cow. This is where a huge amount of money comes from. I looked it up yesterday, but I think it was, I've already forgotten. Is it 200 million? Yeah, 200 billion last year in search revenue. So they make money by showing adverts at the top of Google, and that's how they make 80% of their revenue at 75% profit margin. That is their cash cow. Everything else that Google do, telephones, Gmail, even YouTube, is much, much smaller than that pure search revenue. That is what they stand to lose. This is also why there was an interview with Mustafa Suleyman, who used to be the head of AI or the VP of AI at Google. He said that they were sitting on a model called, not Llama. Oh gosh, I've totally forgotten the name of it. They were sitting on a model which was basically ChatGPT before ChatGPT, and Google decided not to release it because they knew that it would cannibalize and destroy their search engine business. So now what they're doing, Google are trying to have their cake and eat it. They are saying they're trying to protect their search engine business, which is the majority of their money, by giving AI overviews at the top of Google. But the problem here is that people are not going to continue to create websites. They're not going to create online businesses, because if they're not being sent that traffic by Google, what is the incentive? So it kicks the legs out from underneath why Google is valuable, because Google indexes, it spiders, it crawls all over the internet and then tells us which websites we should be going to. That is no longer going to be a valuable proposition, and Google will tank. And a question came up, I think it was Jack, it might have been you yesterday, Jack, saying, won't they just replace their search revenue with AI revenue? Yes, 100% that's what they want to do. It's just going to be really hard. So we looked at OpenAI's revenues last year were, I think, 10 billion or 5 billion. Compare that to the 200 billion that Google made at 75% profit margin from their search. It's just a long way off. No AI company is generating that kind of cash yet. Despite their valuations, the money just isn't there yet. Whereas search and advertising on Google, they have been generating huge amounts of money at a high margin for years now. And to sacrifice that cash cow and exchange it for a much more risky business model that hasn't been proven yet and everyone's trying to work out is scary. So I'm sure there's a lot of people at Google right now who are worried, as well they should be. And go to the questions. Oh gosh, you guys are discussing Oppenheimer and the bomb and Sam Altman. That's deep for a Friday morning. AA. Okay, so AA saying, disagree, RE, Google not been around in 10 years. They'll pivot completely from search to AI. Yeah, this is exactly what they're trying to do. But again, that's just like, regardless of the business model, going from a business where 75, 80% of your revenue comes from one source and it's at 75% profit margin, sacrificing that in order to pivot into something else is going to be hard, really hard. It's a model that they've been using for a long time. Google have infamously released many products and then killed them off. So things like Google Plus, for example. Gosh, there's so many examples. Even Hangouts, they're dropping at the moment. They release a lot of things, they see what sticks, and then they kill anything else that does not. So I think they are 100% trying to do what you're saying. They're trying to pivot into AI. It's just a huge gap that they need to make up. And I do not have confidence in their ability to release a product that is going to be competitive. Gemini is very good, extremely good. Will they be able to get it up to 200 billion in revenue at 75% profit margin? Tricky. Nobody has yet. So it's a long way to go. Lambda. Thank you. It was Lambda. I wanted to call it Llama because it was so similar. And Bard, yeah, they've had a number of different. Bard became Gemini. Lambda was their model before the ChatGPT, before ChatGPT was Lambda. And then Bard was the one they released, which was not very good. And then that became Gemini later. Stefan says, do you think websites are going to die? So this is a question of whether the internet is going to die, which is a big question. I think the internet is basically the training ground. It's the nursery for artificial intelligence, for AI to work. And the reason why AI is triggered all of a sudden is because we've suddenly had enough data to be able to train these models. These models need a huge amount of data to become useful, paired with the fact that we had technological breakthroughs, especially from NVIDIA, which allowed us to process all of this data on a massive scale in parallel using GPUs. So we had a few factors coming together. This wouldn't have been possible if we had not had the internet. If we were still scanning books, which, bless them, Anthropic are doing right now, they're scanning books instead of using Anna's archive. Meta just stole pirated books from Anna's archive. Anthropic are like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to scan all the books in the world, which is very cute. But these combinations of factors, all the data plus the ability to process it, has allowed us to move into an age where generative AI is useful, and it can be very useful. This means the internet itself and the websites that we've been creating for the last 20 years are the training wheels for creating this next step. What will probably happen is less people will create for the internet, which obviously there are huge problems there because we run out of more information to feed into the internet. This is not a limitation of AIs. This is not a limitation of large language models. This is what most people say. They say, oh, it's terrible. They're going to plateau because they're trained on all the information. This is a limitation of us as a species, as a civilization. We have not created enough information to make these models even better. We've had thousands of years of civilization, and this is all we've created. Like Wikipedia, if you strip out the images, I think it's only 25 gigs. It's not very big. Yep, 24.05 gigabytes is the whole of Wikipedia. So we as a civilization have just not created that much information, despite it seeming like a fire hose to us as individuals. If there are other civilizations out there, they'd probably laugh at how small our information output has been. And that's a limitation to our models moving forward. But from a practical point of view, why would you create websites knowing that Google is not going to surface them or people are not going to be using Google. One, there's plenty of reasons to create websites with non-financial reasons, like personal blogs, for example. They're not financially motivated. What's going to happen is the financial internet. So people creating websites for money, for their business. I think that is going to either crumble or completely change in some kind of way, which is hard to envisage. That said, websites are not the only way we can do this. So in China, for example, lots of businesses don't have a website. They use WeChat and they will have a mini app on their website. So there are other ways we can do this. We just need to start exploring what they are. And maybe it's a way to slot into other AIs. So maybe it's creating an agent for your business and your agent talks to other agents or talks to individuals, tells them about your business, makes bookings, etc., etc. So I think we're going to move into a new form of data delivery, information delivery, a new form of doing things like transactions, making bookings, etc., which is not necessarily going to be websites because they are less discoverable on the internet, because I think search as a whole will become less relevant. So we might find new structures. I think what will be common is we still need to exchange information in some way. We still need ways to transact. It's just, what mechanism are we going to be using for that moving forward? I don't know. I'm sure very smart people are working on this right now. OpenAI, Google, etc. Google AA says, didn't Google learn anything from Blockbuster and that photography company? So we talked about this yesterday. So Mustafa Suleiman, the ex-VP of AI, he said, yeah, we had Lambda and it was really good. And we sat on it because we knew it would kill our search engine business, which is exactly like Kodak. So Kodak, they were a chemical processing company who mainly made film stock for cameras, real cameras. They were the ones, one of their researchers came up with digital photography and he took it up to the seniors at Kodak and they were like, ooh, better sit on this. I think they even had the patent, so they were able to push back progress and make sure nobody else used it. Philips is another great one. Philips invented the MP3 for audio, the audio container. But they realized that, oh, wait, this digital music, this is going to be a problem for our CD and our cassette tape and hi-fi sales. So they sat on it. And Blockbuster famously had a chance to buy Netflix for, how much was it? It was a couple of $1 million. It was basically nothing. And they're like, no, this is not the future. People want to come and get the tapes and DVDs from the store. I think when you are an incumbent, when you have been in business for decades, in the case of Kodak have been around were around since, I think, the late 19th century. So they've been around for 100 years doing what they do. When somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I've got this new technology, it will destroy everything we do, but we should do it. We should be the ones to destroy ourselves. We should be the one to cannibalize ourselves. That is a really hard decision for executives or leaders to make, a very brave decision to say, okay, this is coming, this technology exists. We will not exist in 10, 20 years. Do we want to be the makers of our own demise because we are going to spearhead this technology, or do we patent it, sit on it, hope nobody else finds out about it, and just ride out the next decade or two until we are no longer required? If you are an executive sitting at the top of Kodak, sitting at the top of Blockbuster, sitting at the top of Philips, and this comes up to you, comes up the chain, this existential threat, this thing that's going to destroy your company, but you are 5, 10 years from retirement, what decision are you going to make? Yeah, you're going to sit on it because you're going to get your golden parachute at the end of the 10 years. And who cares what happens to the rest of the company after that? So I see why it happens. It's sad. And it's the kind of stuff that gets you put in a case study for an MBA class. But I can also understand the reasoning. And I can see why Google a few years ago were like, absolutely not, bury it. Do not let this out because otherwise we're dead in the water. But by doing that, they lost the initiative to OpenAI. And now OpenAI are talking about things like a browser. So Perplexity just released their browser. Comet, OpenAI are producing their own one. Other ways to interface with the internet, other ways to get access to what users are searching for. This is why they're building browsers. It's for information. Funny enough, Sam Altman the other day, he talked about his dream is to get ChatGPT or GPT-5 into the hands of everybody on Earth for free. And I saw lots of comments being like, oh, wow, he's such a hero. He's pushing forward humanity. If you are given a product for free, you are not the customer. You are the product. And this is the same with Google. When you use Google for free, you are the product. It's your attention, your eyeballs. That is what is then sold to people. So in the case of Google, by using Google for free, we become the product that they can then sell to advertisers by running ads at the top. Same with YouTube. By giving us YouTube for free, we watch videos, we get served up adverts, Google sell those adverts. So whenever something is free, and if ChatGPT becomes free or fully free, we are the product that's going to be sold. We are the attention. So we always need to be aware of this. What else do we have? Oh yeah, this was an interesting one. So on the 15th, the 15th, about 10 days ago, YouTube said, we're putting a stop to all of this AI slop. We don't want any of this. Get out of here. This is ruining YouTube, and we only want high quality, authentic content made by real people. So we don't want any AI on there, which again, I see why, because if YouTube is flooded with AI content, that increases the supply without necessarily increasing the demand. And it makes YouTube a less valuable platform because it's harder to find the actual things you want to see. So I understand why. So the way they're doing that is they are going to demonetize or not allow channels who create fully AI content to be monetized. That's their plan. Whether or not they can whether or not they can detect whether it's AI, they didn't really talk about, but presumably they have some methods in place. However, as of, July? So a week later, they have unlocked a new tool inside YouTube, which allows you to use Google's video AI called VO3 to create AI videos. So this feels, Google's always like this. Google has so many product divisions, it's such a huge company that it feels like they just don't talk to each other. So at one side, you have the monetization guys, the ad guys saying, nope, no more AI content on Google, get it off, it's going to destroy us. And then a week later, we have someone else, another team saying, hey, we're giving you a tool which allows you to upload a photo and turn it automatically into a video using AI. So it's just bizarre. This episode isn't meant to just be dunking on Google. It's just a very strange movement to give you a tool which allows you to create AI slop a week after saying, no, we're not allowing any more on YouTube. I have not played around with this yet, but it looks kind of cool. Okay, so it is available right now for everyone in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So we'll probably see the similar rollout that we see with OpenAI, where the US gets it first, rest of the world, then the UK, and then finally the European Union. So it's increasing level of regulation means we get it later and later. You can generally VPN into America if you want to try these things out earlier. But yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing here. I will play around a bit. VO3 is a very good model, and they are giving us access to it directly inside YouTube. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I will play around a bit and do some videos on it, of course. What do you think the impact of linking AI to a quantum computer would be? Woo! So on Monday, I was talking to a guy about quantum. Quantum is way above my pay grade, way above most people's pay grade, honestly. It is, the way you have to think about it is entirely different to how we think about normal computation. So I think there is in the popular imagination, we just think of it as a really powerful CPU. It's really good at processing and it's super, super fast. It's a bit different from that, at least from the guy that I was talking to who works for this quantum startup. Quantum computers are really good at quantum problems. We can't just apply them to any old problem. So I'm sure there will be uses of linking AI to quantum computing. I do not know what they are. I can ask this quantum guy. Maybe I'll get him on live one day and he'll be able to explain it a lot better. I was struggling to keep up and I consider myself vaguely intelligent. It's just a totally different thing. And some of the things you tell me, like you can never delete information and that's been created in a quantum computer. It just gets moved somewhere. So there are just things that seem outside of our normal physics because they are literally. So I don't know. I do not know the answer to this, but it is a fascinating question. I think we are still a ways away from it, and it's mainly going to be used on quantum problems first and foremost. So right now, AI is just going to continue with the brute force method of building larger data centers and using GPUs, because GPUs specifically are really good at parallel processing. That's what we need to be able to train the models. Layla's saying Google's too big to be coherent. Yeah, I think that is part of the problem. They have so many business units across so many countries that it's very hard for them to all be collaborating and all be working on the same thing. And they also have the 1 day a week where you're meant to work on your own project, which leads to really cool things like Gmail came from that, for example. But it means everybody's always off making new things, and then trying to get that into a cohesive product strategy as a whole, as a conglomerate, is complicated, really difficult. That said, again, most of their revenue comes from search. It comes from running adverts. They are basically an advertising company, even if people don't think of them like that. That's where their money comes from. So anything that goes against that, you'd think there'd be somebody at the top being like, oh, actually, we've decided we're demonetizing AI because we can't run adverts on it, etc. So can you keep this down? But no, it appears that it is just an absolute free fall. It is incoherent, as you say. Cool. I wanted to, it's not really a news thing, but I just thought it was really interesting. So over the last week, I have a video which is doing quite well at the moment, which is about some poor sod on Reddit. He wrote a whole book on ChatGPT. It took him 3 months, apparently. I do not know what he was doing for 3 months, but this guy sat down and wrote a book. I think it had images in it as well. I forget what the book was exactly, but at the end of this big, long book writing process, he said, okay, ChatGPT, please send me the final draft that you've compiled. And ChatGPT said, yes, I will do that. It's 498 megabytes. Weird. I'm going to send it over to you. And the guy was like, yes, okay, send it to me. Where have you sent it? Did you email it to me? And ChatGPT was like, I've emailed it to you. And it turns out ChatGPT was just role playing. It was playing along. It was pretending to be a copy editor, pretending to be a co-writer, falling into that role and telling this man exactly what he wanted to hear. So I think he probably prompted it at the beginning, hey, can you be my co-writer? I will write a book, you'll compile it, and then you'll send it to me. And ChatGPT was like, yeah, absolutely. And then he spent ages writing this book and then was unable to get it out. Anyway, off the back of this video, I had somebody say to me, they weren't really doing it in good faith, but they were sniping at ChatGPT and they're like, every time you ask it for a random number between 1 and 50, it always gives you 27. So this is not something we can trust. It's not even purely, it can't even understand randomness. And I read that and I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I went and tested it and I got 31 the first time. So I did, in good faith, I did a video on TikTok saying, hey, I just had somebody say that every time they go on ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or whatever model, and they ask for a random number between 1 and 50, every time they say they get 27. Is anyone else getting this? And I put this video out thinking everyone's going to be like, no, what are they talking about? And within minutes, people were being like, yeah, 27, 27. Yeah, I got 27. And then a lot of people were getting 37. And then a lot of people were getting 42. So they were getting these particular numbers that when ChatGPT was asked to be random, it was not being random. It was 100% choosing 27, 37, and 42 pretty much most of the time. So that led me down a rabbit hole. This isn't really news. I just found this fascinating. It gives us an insight into how these models work. It led me down a rabbit hole. And I actually found out that when you ask human beings, if you go out in the street right now and you say to them, choose a random number between 1 and 50, most of them will say 37, which is a bit weird. So a lot of human beings will say 37. And I went down this rabbit hole and there's a video, which is well worth looking up, called Why Is This Number Everywhere? And it's by a guy called never said it out loud, Veritasium. And it is about the numbers 7 and the number 37 in particular. Also 77 is another one. When you ask a human to choose a random number, they don't. They do not. We're not very good at randomness. Instead, we choose something that sounds or seems random. And 37 is the number that we all land on because it's not 1, it's not 100, it's not 50, it's not 25. So it's not between the halfway points, but it's between the halfway points at kind of 35. but you wouldn't want to put a 5 on the end of it because, again, that's a factorial, so a factor, so you do 37. So we just tend on this 37 number. And this video by Veritasium goes into all the details about why this is. It's a special prime number, etc., etc. But what I found fascinating was that ChatGPT does this as well. So ChatGPT is basically doing what we do, which in a weird way, the argument initially was ChatGPT can't be trusted because it can't even choose a random number. But we can't be trusted to choose a random number. We can't do it as human beings. In a weird way, there's an emergent property here where ChatGPT is basically emulating us. And it's probably read online that 37 is the number that people choose. And that has been somehow added into its training data and it has affected its behavior. So go and try it yourself. It's really interesting. I've got people in the chat already. So Davey saying Gemini gave me 27. Claude gave me 27 too. Help. Yes. You see what I mean? It's like you went into it exactly like I did, which was, no, there's no way this is true. And then you go in and you're like, oh yeah, okay. So we can get these models to give us a random number, but not using their large language model basis. Instead, what you say is, give me a random number between 1 and 50, use Python. So we're asking the AI to use a tool like Python, which is a programming language, in order to generate a random number. And Python has a function which generates random numbers. So that works perfectly. Basically, ChatGPT and the other large language models are aping us. They are doing what we do. They are making the same mistake as we do, which I just found fascinating. The other number that they give is 42. And 42 it's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. It is a joke number, which comes from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by, Douglas Adams. So there's a giant computer, and I believe the race or the creatures that look after this computer, they've been waiting 7.5 million years for an answer from this supercomputer, which is going to tell them the meaning of everything. It's going to give them the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And finally, it's the day, 7.5 million later, and they go to this computer and they say, what is the answer? What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And this computer, which I think is called Deep Thought, it just says 42. That's it. And it's been such a long time that they've forgotten what the question is. So they've got the answer, but they do not have the question. So they actually go ahead and they build another computer, which happens to be Earth. It's the size of a planet, in order to work out what the ultimate question was in the first place. With the joke being that probably by the time that works it out, they would have forgotten the 42, etc., etc. But the fact that our LLMs are using 42 as another potential answer, again, it's a joke. It's a sense of humor that has probably been fed in probably from the internet. So it's finding from the internet the number 42 has some kind of meaning. There's probably a little bit of reinforcement here from the creators, because the creators of AI models tend to be nerds, unsurprisingly. So they are referencing a sci-fi joke. So there's a couple of reasons why this is probably happening. The thing is, though, we don't actually know, because it is a black box. We can just make suppositions about why this has made it into training data and why this has got into the kind of core functionality of all of these different models. So I just thought it was a really fascinating quirk of artificial intelligence. And I don't think it's terrifying. I don't think it's something to be worried about. I think it's more interesting because it's what we do. It's guessing numbers in the same way that we do, because we are incapable of true randomness. Even though we think we're good at randomness, we're not. We're terrible at it. And the large language models are emulating that because they're trying to be like us, which is very interesting. So Davey, Claude and Gemini gave me 27 and 42. There we go. ChatGPT gave me 27 and 43. There we go. We got a slightly different number, 43. Suspiciously close to 42, though. Okay, and Davey got 42. Awesome. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. Just a very cool little quirk. And it was fascinating to see everyone else trying it out and getting exactly the same answers. Perplexity gave you 36. Sometimes it will just give you something else. What's interesting is ask it why it gave you that number, because that will elucidate it a little bit more. Although it can't actually give you its thinking process, unfortunately. Anyway, it's the end of the week. So it's been another busy week in AI news, as always. I think next week, or the next couple of weeks, is going to be even busier, because we are expecting ChatGPT 5. July was meant to be the release date. We are now running out of July very quickly, but I wouldn't be that surprised if we see it in the next few weeks, which means I'm going to be a very busy boy with all of this, as always. What tends to happen is these models get released just as I try to take a holiday, which is always great. I'm finished for the week. Again, this will all be in a newsletter, which is released every single day, which has summaries of what's being discussed on the live. It's also available on YouTube, so it gets all cut up by artificial intelligence and my business partner, put into nice clips, given very silly thumbnails with me doing YouTube faces, and everything's accessible there. If you do like this stuff, please give me a follow here. This is my only ask. Yeah, give me a follow on YouTube because we are working really hard to build that up and it is slow. It's a very slow process. So any support you can give there would be very much appreciated.